Good afternoon, welcome to the Market Wrap number 123. Stuart Williamson here at the helm. Posted as purely a way of helping potential UK property investors make buying decisions. Not for information purposes, only for information purposes. Freudian slip. Not all our ideas, some borrowed. Please do like and subscribe. Okay, please don't forget to leave those lovely juicy comments, that's how we learn. Thank you. Liz Truss models herself on Margaret Thatcher, judging by her photo ops echoing famous images of the country's first female premier, Margaret, bless her. She's been photographed on a tank, wearing a Russian hat, in Red Square and sitting astride a Triumph motorcycle, all resembling photos of the dear Margaret. And it appears we're living in a scene straight out of the 1980s at the moment, with looming recession, industrial unrest, urban decay, problems in the housing market, all that sort of stuff. We've even got the music. Kate Bush running up that hill. I remember her first hits many years ago. It's 40 years since she had those. So let's look a little bit at the backdrop of the 80s and look at the similarities if we can. Inflation is currently the highest it's been since that period. A jump in food prices has pushed British inflation back into double digits this month. It was down last month, and it's hit a 40-year high in July. The Office of National Statistics, ONS, said the Consumer Price Index increased to 10.1% in annual terms in September. A Reuters poll of economists had pointed to a reading of 10% after the 9.9% raise in August. The Bank of England also will feel under pressure now to step up its interest rate hiking campaign next month, November the 3rd, I think it is, in the light of this data that's just come out. Short-dated British government bond yields, which are sensitive to changes in interest rate expectations, rose strongly in early trading. So it's pretty grim back up there. Food and non-alcoholic beverage prices were the biggest driver of inflation for September, as they rose 14.5% for the year to date. That's amazing. Biggest jump since April 1980, according to historically modelled estimates by the CPI. Look at the graph, it says it all. So that's pretty grim, and it's pretty similar to what happened in the 80s. Not a pleasant picture at all, but that's not in isolation. There are other things that are going on as well. We can look at basically social unrest or industrial unrest, which is very similar. What you have is growth is stalling, and workers are smarting basically from years of non-existent real wage growth, and they're initiating industrial unrest, from train drivers to barristers of all people to nurses. They're all spoiling for a fight for higher salaries to compensate for this inflation, which you can understand. Again, it's the incompetence of the government that's allowing this to happen. They should have seen this off at the pass, so to speak. Finally, you've got urban decay. And if you remember in the 1980s, we had the streets piled high. In the 70s and 80s with rubbish because they weren't being taken away because of the strikes. Now, according to the Resolution Foundation, the think tank, the top 10% of households in Britain are richer than those in many European countries. But middle income homes are not. They're 9% poorer than their counterparts in France, and the poorest fifth of households in Britain are now more than 20% worse off than their peers in France and Germany. While millions of people in Britain have benefited from rising house prices and stock market increases, driven higher by rock bottom interest rates, those without such assets are going into a downturn with little financial protection. That 15-year change in fortunes which we've had has also combined with global financial crash, 4 British elections, highly charged referendums on Scottish independence, and of course the European Union. Now, on top of all that, a global pandemic. It does feel like it's a near constant crisis in many areas of the world. So this is a return to the 1980s. Is this a new normal? And it begs the ongoing question to what effect this will have on the British property market, which is also my area. To get a scientific assessment, I've taken this short YouTube clip with much appreciation from Ramin Nakisa, who works for Pensioncraft, an excellent YouTube channel, which I could plagiarise, but he's a far better technical explainer than I am. So do go onto his channel, have a look after this if you can, and subscribe.
Prices do eventually recover, and the drawdown periods are never usually more than a decade. But, is it going to be a complete collapse? I doubt it, because there's still an undersupply problem, both in the US and in the UK. And that'll keep a kind of floor on prices, I think.
So what will happen to the price of property? Is it going to be down by 30%, 15%, or not at all? The size of the falls or not will be based on whether you bought wisely in a good location or not, or if you're thinking of buying a good location or not. Whether you're buying long term and value time in the market as opposed to, or you're trying to time the market. Look at real assets like buy, restore, remortgage, rent out. Look at HMOs, those sort of things. And you can really add value to, as opposed to just buying something potentially that's not, or buy a BMV. And who will be most affected by these mortgage changes, the mortgage situation? I mean, basically, as we see, it's those who wish to move house, who want to move house, they're going to have to pay it, or first-time buyers, they have to pay it. They're the most sensitive to interest rate changes. Least affected will be cash buyers and those with a larger disposable income who are looking at building wealth and using distressed opportunities. You've got a big disposable income, it doesn't matter too much if it goes up by 500 quid or 1,000 quid, so what? There will also be a cushion for the UK for fixed rate mortgage owners. It's a case of how long though will interest rates stay high? And that's the interesting question. How good will that fixed rate buffer be? Interest rate swaps are the things that tell us about this. If you want to know more about swaps, there's a useful link just here to Nordcap, and they have a nice guide that I downloaded. Have a look at that again, it looks pretty good. Basically, interest rate swaps are saying that the rates could peak at 6% over the next 2 years and they will fall, then mortgage deals will get better. So if interest rates are going to go up as they are, how will this affect our buy-to-let profitability? How can we look after and cushion ourselves? I think the important thing here to look at is the rental market. Unfortunately, these prices are not going to be 1980s prices levels. If they were, we'd all be paying £60 a month in rent. JLL suggesting the 2022 residential forecast, again the link is below, over the next 4 years rents will increase on average in the different cities around the UK. I don't have Welsh stats, apologies, I'm not being Welshist. 2.9% up over 4 years each year in London, 3% in Edinburgh, 2.6% in Glasgow, 2.8% in Birmingham, Manchester 3%, and Manchester 2.9%, Bristol 3%. But then these can be completely wrong, and just to show how wrong they can be, the Manchester Evening News reports that average monthly rent in Manchester has hit £1,100 per month, the highest since 2006 this year. According to research house Urban Bubble, again link below, in 2022 there were 5,545 new home starts in Manchester, highest for 10 years. In Q2, that only 360 flats were available for rent, which is extraordinary when you bear in mind that 32% of the population in Manchester rent. Extraordinary that is. It's a high rental location, great place to buy. Rents in Salford, Manchester and Trafford are up by 20%. Renting a studio today in Trafford costs the same as it did renting a 2-bed flat there 4 years ago. And it's not going to stop. It's one of the fastest growing cities in Europe. Its population is growing at 9% per annum, which is 50% above the UK average. So are we in the 1980s? No, it's a different world, things are different. Certainly my 20 kilos extra tells me I'm not, plus having a plethora of kids tells me that. But Kate Bush says we might be. Inflation, industrial unrest, a house price market in transition says it is. So let's hope it's a bit like the 1980s and we're going to come through this into a better place, as to a certain extent we did in the 1990s. So please like, subscribe if you did. If you don't, just say so. Fill in the information form below if you'd like more information as to what common sense ideas we're sending out to clients. If you look at our website, look at my LinkedIn profile, you see we have a lot of very positive clients there. We're very happy they work with us. Come and join us. You might enjoy it. Thank you very much. Cheerio.